Guy channel. The Car Guy channel. My name is Mike Hennessy. This show is all about cars and all four car guys. Get yourself a cold beer. Get yourself a cold beer, guys, because our show is... We are smoking! I'm Mike Hennessy, and you're watching the Car Guy channel. I have an auto repair shop. I've been in the business for over 30 years. You name it, we got it, we built it, we've done it, we do it. We love this car stuff, and I hope you guys do too. We're gonna have a lot of fun, got a lot of stuff cooking, so just stay tuned.
You know you make me wanna shout, kick my heels up and shout, throw my hands up and shout, throw my head back and shout. Come on now, don't forget to see you will. Don't forget to see, yeah. Say
Welcome to the Car Guy channel. We got a fantastic show on a couple really cool cars. A car we just finished the restoration and complete paint on, and we got something to the old family truckster. I gotta have it on the show. It's gotta put a smile on your face, and for some of the guys around my age, it's gonna bring back some memories to all of you. There's so many cool things out there with all these cars. We got a lot of stuff to show you. So there's two things you don't do. Don't touch these restored cars when they're finished. Don't touch that dial. Sit down, get yourself a cold one, and let's check out some pretty cool cars. Don't turn your TV set off. This is not that boring. This is a great car. 1969 Ford LTD Country Squire station wagon. I'm telling you, when I saw this car come in, I got a great phone call, because you know how I go about these cars. It's always about a story. Kind of always can't be about the car sometimes, but the story has a lot more charm sometimes than the car. This car has both. I get a phone call from a good customer, good guy that watches the Car Guy channel, and he's a good old wholesome mechanic. Gives me a call. His father-in-law can't really drive anymore, and he wants to kind of get rid of a car. Asked what it is. It's an LTD Country Squire wagon. I said I gotta see it. 54,000 original miles. And things that intrigued me is a little bit about some of the options, and I'm going to go over some of those options with you. Wagons in the 60s were absolutely the hit. It was the rage. I remember one time there was a Jeep Cherokees, Land Rovers, and whatever it takes for moms to bring kids to school. This right here was the family vehicle, and a lot of them pretty much been destroyed. There was about 86,000 Country Squires built by Ford. These were made 7-passenger and a 9-passenger. This happens to be the 9-passenger. We're going to show you the seats here in a few more minutes. But the kind of the neat thing, mom and dad could go down to the dealership and buy this car for $3,900. Yes, $3,900 for a pretty cool wagon. And driving this thing down the road, I'm telling you, get thumbs up, people look at it, and it's absolutely just a gas to drive. The neat thing is, it's about Americana. It's about our history. And a lot of people that get cars and do cars like this, I admire you guys for appreciating them, collecting them, and storing them, because this is what America was about in the 1960s. You know, mom and pop be driving the car, the kids in the seat. The very first thing came to my mind was, don't make me stop this car. Those kind of stories went on, and I'm sure when you guys see this car, you're going to kind of get a couple chuckles out of it. So let's check this thing here out, and let's check out under the hood, because that's where we always like to start on the Car Guy channel. They did have engine options. Now, the engine options were a good handful of them. This one happens to be a 302, good gas mileage V8. You can tell the man that bought this car that I got it from the original owner. He thought about this car when he bought it. And I'm going to go through some of the options. It's just going to blow you out of the water. It's really kind of neat. People made that change. He wanted a 302 engine. He definitely wanted factory air conditioning. Power steering was not a need for him. He said he wants to keep in shape, and that's how he drives the car. He ordered it without power steering. And one of the other things about this car, he orders it with a 3-speed manual shift. We're going to take you inside the car. Now, some of you younger guys out there that watch the Car Guy channel, they used to call that 3 on the tree. That's how you shifted the gears. You got a clutch. Having a stick shift in this right here was completely unique and completely rare. And I always say this on the show all the time, a car's only original once. I love survivors. Little digs and little nicks here and there. It's part of the charm, part of the patina. It's the way it is. It's got the classic and the antique look. Some of the neat things this car has. This has vacuum assist power headlight doors. These doors here open up on a vacuum pressure, and they go ahead and open. After the car maybe sits for 4 or 5 days, these will kind of open up on the car just because of the vacuum system. But we have absolutely done nothing to it at all. But I want to show you something on this car that's really kind of neat. You're going to see all these numbers in here. All the stuff here are all the mileage. It was when he had the oil changed and the dated. So he logged everything in underneath the hood. So when he watched his mechanic do the work, he went ahead personally and went ahead and did that. And that basically is part of his service records. If you guys are mechanics and home mechanics, professional mechanics, I'm going to tell you something. If you ever replaced a heater core in a car, it's one of those items that's called the ugly job. And this right here can be an ugly job, but not in these Fords. In these years, in the 60s, is all you do is you take off these 4 little screws, and your whole heater core pops right out of the whole complete assembly, and you can service and replace the heater core. That's a great design on this car. I'm telling you, that really makes it kind of user-friendly. They put a big box, almost like General Motors did for the air conditioning on this right here. Big air cleaner. This car doesn't require any smog of any needs whatsoever. There's no smog pump. Very simple to operate underneath the car. No power brakes. Now, you don't need them. This car here stops on a dime and gives you 10 cents change. That thing there is excellent. That holds up really pretty good. Got your vacuum canister, your air conditioning unit. This car here is well taken care of and well maintained. Like I say, I love original stuff. For you stick shift guys, that's what really got me onto this car. When Scott called and said, well, he says, my pop's car is a stick. And I said, really? He goes, well, I wasn't sure if you'd like that or not. I think it's a great feature on it. You got the third pedal on the floor, obviously, for the clutch, next to the brake. And then on the steering column, here's how you shift it. You got first gear, in, to you, and down. Reverse is straight on up. Second is up here, down. Just an H pattern, just like you would if you had a 3-speed stick on the floor. 3-speed on the tree is the term used on the Car Guy channel. Look at the room you got in the back seat here. Now this right here will hold 3 in the front, 3 right there, and throw a good handful in the back of this car. This is what they call a 9-passenger Country Squire. Here's the charm of the 9-passenger wagon. This right here is the seating. Actually, they even had seat belts in here if you guys took a notice. These right here are actually they'll stay down, and this all folds up. And this right here is a nice big, it's like an SUV. All the stuff is in the back of the car. You want to throw some bodies back in here, strap them down, usually for the smaller kids and whatnot. You strap them into the back of this right here, and now you got a 9-passenger wagon. This Country Squire had a really, really cool option to it, and it was a big selling point for Ford. This right here is, of course, the tailgate. Sit on the tailgate, do the drive-in movie, and sometimes when we were kids, my mom, believe it or not, let me and my 2 brothers, those 2 meatheads sitting right next to me, sit on the back of the tailgate and on our way to the grocery store. Today, she'd be shot, but unfortunately, we all came out okay. But this right here, that right there is from the tailgate. Now, if you want to go ahead and open up the other way, now, how cool is that? On the back of the bumper, on the bottom, were these little tiny wheels. Now, these little tiny wheels is because the car was kind of long in the back, and the back end of the car was a little bit on the heavy side, and to go up and down a driveway, those wheels would actually roll off the pavement or the concrete, and it wouldn't damage the back of the bumper. Believe it or not, people put those things on, and the dealers recommended it because it was pulling bumpers off of cars. This Country Squire was really a fun car to do. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. I really want to thank Scott and Lee for giving me a phone call about the car, stories about cars, or what it's all about. So I want to thank you guys for giving me a call. And you guys got any of this stuff? Low mile stuff, original stuff, kind of some crazy stuff? You want to sell it or whatnot? I'm always interested in classic cars. I have some people go ahead and call us about all sorts of cool stuff. So I really want to thank those guys. This particular car and piece of the show is dedicated to Scott, Lee, and her dad. What do you got?
I got a 72 Chevy pickup. I put a lot of work into. I've been doing body work. I've been doing the motor work. It's running pretty good.
And the guy said you got a 64 Chevy?
My best friend's got a 64 Chevy.
That's pretty cool.
I've been working on since probably sophomore year in high school.
Two-door hardtop?
It's a 4-door.
And 4-door. I got some 4-door 57 Chevys in my collection
4-door's
now.
the way to go, really.
4-doors work when you go out. If you trim them out kind of cool. Hey, one of the shows we did a wagon for a guy. These guys are in kind of like a club. Pontiac station wagon, 4 doors. Because the 2-door hardtops, the convertibles, let's face it, they're almost unbuyable. They're getting tough. Well, for the average guy, I mean, that's a lot of dough to start spending and stuff.
It's like the Del Rey.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Or a bubble top. 409 double top, 409 type stuff. Pretty big stuff. Hey, good. I got my orders of parts coming in. Let's make sure to get all you guys in there. We just got to let people know that, you guys aren't, I don't want to say, it sounds terrible, but you guys aren't the goofy parts guys. You know what you're doing. So if a guy calls up for a part, if you don't know exactly what he's talking about, you give him to someone who does, or they give him back to you. So I just kind of want people to know that. Hey, take care, bud. Yes, you guessed it. The car of the week is a 1974 Corvette 454 fully optioned Roadster. I'm going to tell you quite a bit about the 74 year makes and models of cars, but Corvette has such a history that I think is just absolutely spectacular. When they came out in 1953, they only had like 350 so cars in 53, and they kept the run on the same. But there's something about Chevrolet that I want to make sure you guys know, and you probably heard the term many times, number matching. You hear that really quite a bit with Chevrolet. Some other cars have their number sequencing also. Ford and, of course, Chrysler has their sequencing. But I'm telling you, when it comes to number matching, Corvette started to do the full number matching in 1963 is when the blocks were actually stamped with the VIN number on the car, on the motor itself. So you're going to find the VIN number stamped on the chassis, you're going to find it stamped on the protecto plate, you're going to find it done on the frame, and you're going to see it done actually on the engine itself. You know, Corvette guys are very, very particular. Your engineer type people, they kind of go for that because they're really into the number sequencing. There's a book by Nolan Adams that will tell you all about numbers and how to do it. It's really not that complicated when you kind of get into it. But I'm going to tell you about the Corvette. Corvette has some of the neatest history in the automotive world. I'm going to tell you about a 74 Corvette that's really going to change your views on the 70s cars. Let's get into the particulars of a 1974 Chevrolet Corvette. Now, some people would call that kind of a boring Corvette out of the Corvette line, or kind of a yawn. You could hear that. But 74, like every year, has its own particular really cool type of stuff. 1974 cars is the very first year of the urethane rear bumper. And of course, the front bumper came in 1973, but it was the kind of a look that they needed to give this car. So urethane bumpers are actually on the front and the rear. Kind of another great thing about a 74 Corvette is that there is no smog. You can get this body style here. You can buy some of these cars here, right? And you get a car, you don't have to smog it. There's no catalytic converter. Last year, for Chevrolet Corvette, they actually have really true dual exhaust. But one of the best parts about this car, the neatest feature, what really makes this car here an absolute ultra home run, is that it's an LS4. LS4 means it's a 454, factory 454. These motors were rated at the rear wheels for horsepower. So an LS4 was 270 horsepower out of the rear wheels. And they had another motor option because they only had 3 engine options in those particular years. Hard to get performance stuff. This was the top of the line, the most performance Corvette you could possibly buy in 1974. Then they had a motor called the L78, which actually had 250 horsepower, just about a little bit under the 454. Then they had the standard, which is the base car, which is the L48, and that car had, believe it or not, don't fall off the couch, 195 horsepower to the rear wheels. So they kind of consider that kind of the boring age for some of the cars. But there's some neat features about the 74 I think is cool. The neatest thing about the car, besides 454, air conditioning and all the options, the odometer, 35,000 original miles. And I'm telling you, that really makes this car here utterly spectacular. One of the best things about this car is I'm very fortunate to have a very close and dear friend named Keith. Keith's the owner of this car. The neatest part about it was he bought the car brand new. He bought the car brand new in 1974, and it has some crazy history to it. The car was stolen at one time, and it was just for a joyride down over in Groveland, California. And the car came back okay, but the paint was faded and the car was black. The car was silver. And we went ahead and said, kind of boring on it. Color changing was okay. We didn't think it was going to be an issue back then. We painted the car black. After time went on, Keith had it in storage. I had it in storage. We both, went back and forth with the car. Get a phone call one day and he says, these cars are getting pretty valuable now. I think I want to go ahead and have that thing restored back to silver. So we shipped the car back from Arizona here to California, and you're going to see some scenes of my shop taking this thing here completely apart. This car here was painted with that new paint, and I'm telling you, it's absolutely fantastic. Standox paint is very expensive. It's a German-made paint, and it flows absolutely beautiful. The trick to it, of course, is the clear coat, like on almost any of the paints. When we did this car, we went ahead and removed all the bumpers away from the car, every piece. The hood was off, the doors were off the car, everything was completely off. And to get this car, we stripped it down, blocked it. Even though the car was an original car, never been damaged, never been hit or anything, it still needed to be blocked. Fiberglass is a very, very funny product to work with, and even these years, because it does stress, it does change. Some people call it modeling, is another term that's been used, because it just kind of looks like it models a little bit, almost like clay would look after a while. You still got to block them out and make them so they're smooth. So this car here has had some of the best primers, some of the best chemicals were put on this car to paint it, and the paint was probably one of our best jobs to put out for this year because there's not a flaw in it. And doing silver is very difficult. We won't get into the cost of paint because I've been complaining about it since the day I wrote the check for it. And I'm telling you, the paint on the car is absolutely beautiful. I wish we had a camera that can really get the depth of it. It's the silver and the flake in it. So Keith is a very detailed man, and he's a guy that really, really knows cars. He could stand up with the best and best of anybody as knowledge about cars. And yes, he is an engineer, so he's very particular. So when he sees this piece, I know he's going to be cracking up. He went ahead and bothered to go ahead and get a lot of the factory NOS parts that were needed, the rubbers, all the stuff we kind of needed for the car. But he got somebody through the factory to give him an actual piece of metal, the swatch of the original color on 1974 Corvette, the correct silver. So we took the swatch, took it over to Buddy Over Cooks, and they went ahead and matched up that color exactly to the right silver that Keith wanted on the car. So we went ahead and did it all, and you're going to see that this car here is absolutely outstanding. I always say on the show all the time about attention to detail. And when you paint a car, there's more to painting a car than just blocking them and sanding them and do the things. There's so many details. It's actually the whole second phase of doing a car. And I'm going to show you what we did underneath the hood of the car. And that's where the horsepower is underneath here. There you go, 454 LS4 motor, and I'm telling you, with 270 horsepower, this thing here drives absolutely beautiful. Underneath the hood, we say attention to detail. We went ahead and bead blasted and cleaned all the hardware underneath the hood, replaced the insulator, and we still got a little bit of cleanup to do, but we had to show the car because it's going to go to upholstery next week, and we're going to ship it back to Arizona. So we really want to make sure we got it on the show. All the rubber for the top of the air cleaner, cleaned all the stuff here up, and when the car's painted, believe it or not, you got to paint this to make sure it's correct. A lot of guys will say, oh, it's too much trouble, it's too much work. Not for a good buddy like my bud Keith. I want to make the car right and want to make it nice as we can. We did this right here all in the same silver as it shot us the same day as we shot the car. Corvette's synonymous for this ignition shielding that they have in the cars. The reason this is here is so the radio does not get static from the distributor. Same with the wires. They have a stainless steel sheathing that goes over them. The same thing. You don't want the static to operate into the radio and cause you to get a staticky radio, very scratchy, and that's really what that is for, believe it or not. And a lot of fiberglass cars, some special cars have ignition shielding. Studebaker did it, obviously, in the time because it had fiberglass parts. Fiberglass cannot shield the electronic items that this is putting out to actually ruin the radio sound in the car. So that's really what that's for. This car has air conditioning, ram air for the hood for this big LS4 motor, and of course we happen to have the California smog pump. Not much we can do about it, but we're leaving it on the car because that's the way it came with, and we have air conditioning. And I'm telling you, it has most of the options you need. Power steering is a major must. But I was kind of surprised on doing the car that it did not have a power brake booster on the back over there behind the master cylinder, which really would kind of bothered me in a weird way because I thought maybe we left it off the car somewhere. But nope, this car here was a standard manual brake car. Now, for you real auto buffs out there, you know, Corvette with the hideaway headlights. Corvette really started hideaway headlights in 1963, and it's when they were actually built into the front of the bumper, and they actually rotated, and they went ahead and turned. These right here are vacuum operated, and we pull the switch for the headlights. These right here will pop right on up, and that's how the lights work on the car. Now, Corvette went ahead, and for the new ones you're seeing in the 2014s and the newer cars, they don't have hideaway headlights, and even Ferrari went away from it also. They decided to make a part of the actual design of the automobile to be seen, shown, and used. So hideaway headlights are kind of a pretty neat thing. Back in the 60s, they came in for quite a few years, in the 80s and in the 90s, and then they finally found a way to take it back. Neat feature in the car, and it gives it a great look. Now, for the power brakes I was talking about earlier, the big vacuum diaphragm usually goes in the back. Now, you can add it on if you want to, but again, we were talking about earlier about Corvettes being number matching. Well, you wouldn't want to do that because this car did not come from the factory like that, and to keep the car for the value of it and the collectability of it, most guys are just going to leave it alone because the car does stop good. This car here stops on a dime and give you 9 cents change. This is great. Now, this right here, there's normally a sticker right here, but these are available now. And the neat thing about restoring Corvettes, you can get parts from these local Corvette supply houses. Bunches of them out there. Stickers for here, stickers for the hood, emblems around the car. You can get pretty much about anything that's remanufactured and redone. Not all remanufactured parts are really that good anymore. Some are made in other countries, not like the factory stuff. But I think you can get away with a lot of stuff. And a guy like Keith, being a very detailed man, he goes ahead and gets online. He finds a lot of NOS stuff. But this sticker here is available, and it doesn't matter who makes it. Go in this car, and it's going to make it. Get a lot of people ask me a lot of questions when they see the car over the showroom in the shop and looking at it. And the biggest question is they ask me, what is this? What's a key lock doing here? 1974 is the first year that they actually put the key lock on the fender. Now, it's not a key lock. It's a key lock button, but it turns on the burglar alarm to the car. In the earlier cars, when you got that as an option, that was actually put on the rear back of the car, and they kind of thought, well, let's go and put it out here and see if that makes a little bit more sense for the driver. Some of the aftermarket parts that are made in other countries and whatnot are nowhere near the quality that they made back in the 70s from the manufacturer. Especially one of them, of course, when the rearview mirror goes ahead and gets kind of tighter and unusable and whatnot. Keith went ahead and found this online. It's an NOS, and it looks absolutely spectacular, and it's the right size. It's rectangular. It's not round. Here's something that went out of the way to get the right part for the car. Now, here's a thing that started in 1968, technically in 68, when they had the button, they had the handle here, and there was a button to do. Now, this right here, most gals actually call it the nail biter. And this right here went into Corvettes for quite a few years, up until the year 1983. So all the way to 82, which is 83, was really never a car, but in 82, they still had this type of lever to get in the car. You press down to open the door, and most of the gals really didn't like it. But you get a real Corvette gal, she'll find a way to deal with it. And that term we use all the time is the attention to detail. What I really kind of felt we did real well with this car was put all the rubber in there and use the correct yellow glue to actually adhere the rubber to the body of the car. All the way down here, and correct. Oh, door jambs to me can make and break a car. This looks fantastic in there with the right screws. It holds all this together, and that just makes it look really, really nice. I kind of wrecked probably some new door panels for this car, but they are original and they do work for the car. Attention to detail again. Don't need to be bragging about it, but I really think it turned out really nice. These are stainless steel headed screws that hold this piece here on. Now, like I said, there's more to paint in this car. All these pieces had to be taken out, and you get some old screws that don't come on and off very well, or new screws need to go in, retapping, you break a few. It's just the way it's going to be. But these right here came out real nice, and we were able to go ahead and get some touch-up dye. Keith ordered us from a company called Eckler's. We were able to get the touch-up dye for all sorts of little pieces throughout the whole car to make it nice. The Corvette wheel always makes these cars. I love the Corvette wheel. It looks very, very petite, well-balanced, well-designed, thin, easy to handle onto, and it's a long steering mass that goes into the dash. You got the tach over here, got the speedometer over here. Love looking at the low miles on this car. We put brand new carpets into it, and this color is called Oxblood. Now, I don't know if it would have been my choice. I think if I was buying the car, I probably would have ordered it with silver interior. Silver on silver would have been a great choice for me. I'm always partial to the black interior, but in the cars of these vintages in these years, the color really makes a lot of sense. And I do think after putting this car here together, I've really grown really fond of it, and I think it looks really nice. The way they set up the gauges, the way Corvette does, gives you more of a cockpit, more of an airplane type feel and design. It has a good look, and I think it looks great. Same with the steering, the stick shift on the floor. It's just a push button automatic, and these have turbo 400 transmissions behind them. So this transmission here is almost like it's just bulletproof. You can't wreck them. I'm always partial to Roadsters. Roadster generally means a convertible car. Most so in a sports car that has no back seat is considered a Roadster. Convertible would be like Camaro or Mustang. Convertible, that's a convertible car. These right here are called Roadsters. Now, there's something about these that would kind of really shock you, and doing the homework on them and the knowledge that we have about the Corvette. A Corvette Roadster costs less money than a Corvette Coupe by about $400. So when you go ahead and order a Roadster, it was actually a little bit on the cheaper side, and they made only 5,000 of them, 5,200 and change, versus all the other ones, 32,000 Corvettes they made of the coupes. So here's a car that was less money, less production, and obviously I always feel the Roadster always prevails in the collectability. Kind of a neat rear deck lid on them. There's two levers. You flick this button here, and this thing lifts up, and we're going to show you attention to detail on the inside of here. Like I said earlier, doing the paint on a car like this, we went ahead and painted all this here the same time we did the car. Detailed all these pieces, all bead blasted and clear coated. And from the age and the time and when the car was stored, it created a lot of crud and a lot of rusty type issues on it. Some of the nuts and bolts were all replaced with all matching ones, of course, and cleaned up the brass tips, made these things nice for the operation for the hardtop and to lift this here up and down. There's two levers. This right here would go ahead and release the hardtop pins that would hold on to it, and the convertible top pins that go into the holes. And again, this right here lifts the door up and down. But it's the detail going all the way around all the rubber. The rubber tips up here. This right here is the vibration dampener for the convertible top. You know, some shops just want to do a paint job and that's about it, and paint it and walk away. But, you know, in this particular case, because Keith's actually a very, very good friend, I wanted to make sure we went further beyond the Call of Duty. And we took these are where the slots are. There's one on each side by where the hinges. So when water kind of flows back here, this is where the water would come out. We had to clean all these out, blow them out, stick a little wire in there, whatever it took to get the leaves and all the stuff from all the age and all the time to clean these type of pieces here out. That's what makes the job here a much better car, a nicer job for everybody. It's a win-win for all. I'm really pleased on how it all turned out. Goes to detail, and this car here is going to look absolutely stunning. Now, we're showing this car here now because the convertible top's going over to upholstery. We're going to get over to Mountain View, and Bobby's going to do a great job, put a new top on the car and a few little touch-ups on it. But we had to show you this before we get this car shipped out to Arizona. I was so excited about it, had to get it on the show, had to show Keith the car, because that's what this car guy stuff's all about. Let's spend a minute and talk about the back end of this car. Now, some people really like it, some people don't. When they came out, it was a real big move for General Motors. They still needed to make these cars here so they could actually take a little bit of absorption from a bump in the back of the car. And when they originally came out with these, they didn't have a piece that actually worked very well from the factory. So the original cars of 1974 only, it's a split rear enduro bumper. That means the two pieces. These right here, it's kind of a pressed in, so give it an enduro material. You got to mix a special paint, a chemical in the paint to make it so it's called a flexing agent, so the paint won't crack. In time it will. Corvettes don't hold their paint really for a long period of time because it's fiberglass, and they do flex quite a bit. The 74, the quick eye for a 74 is this line right down the center of the car, and the way the emblems are laid into the bumper itself. It's a really neat touch on it, and it's because the time went on, because the year of the car and how old it is, now there's a charm to it. So when you see it going down the road, and when you guys see some of the pictures here, you're going to say, that's a pretty cool looking car. That's a pretty neat deal. But of course, that's synonymous. You know, the two taillights in the rear. In the earlier years on the 60 model cars, 63 through 67, people added a third light, and there were some people thought they were factory third lights. It never happened, never was. Two lights on each side was always the way they were. And in 1974, they recessed the license plate into this well of the car. And they got the license plate lamps here and there, and that's when they went and decided to bring them in. That's what made the Corvette back end look the way it does. You're going to see the dual exhaust on the right, and you see it on the left. This is a real dual exhaust car. Corvettes were really dual exhaust back then. In 1974, like I said earlier, was the last of the true dual exhaust cars. I hope you guys and gals enjoyed the show. We put a lot of effort into it and all stuff going on, all kinds of stuff. Hey, there's a piece of information I want to let everybody know that Estelle Gal and Mike Hennessy and Susan Hennessy just got back from Ventura, California, and we won the prestigious WAVE Award. The WAVE Award stands for Western Access Video Excellent. The Car Guy channel won this out of 6 states. We're all very proud of it. I'm proud of all the work that Estelle and Susan does to create the Car Guy channel, to make it good for people like you to go home and watch, and we enjoy everybody watching the show, sending in stuff, the emails, the cards, the letters, all that funny stuff. It comes in, and for cars that we purchase on low-mile cars, and of course people enjoy seeing the restored stuff and how we did some things. So any other information you want to get on cars and all kinds of stuff, go to Car Guy Channel, www.carguychannel.com. God bless you, live life well, and do everything you want to do.